Hey guys, how you doing? As I do, when I got a day off, I typically make two videos because I'm like that. Today's video is all going to be about Venezuela. The Biden administration really signaling its interest in putting more military pressure onto Venezuela. Uh, I just did a pretty good breakdown. Well, good, but I just did a breakdown of what's been going on in the Middle East and the World War III of that. Well, the same kind of stuff's been happening in South America, right? The United States has fomented coups and backed political uprisings in almost every single nation in South America within the last 100 years, certainly. But throughout its entire history, right? It's always focused on doing that kind of thing. And the Biden administration now coming in, preaching a message of unity, preaching a message of improving people's lives, gonna ramp up the military machine and start putting pressure onto Venezuela. I think one of the most evil propaganda pieces, like one of the blackest, darkest propaganda slogans that I've heard in the last 10 years is easily "Look at Venezuela." Anybody who ever has said "Look at Venezuela" should hang their head in shame, if only out of the ignorance it requires to say such a thing. Uh, the purpose of saying "Look at Venezuela" is, of course, to completely dismiss the idea of socialism, right? This is the purpose of it, and I consider it to be like pretty far right fascist propaganda, because socialism was a resounding success in Venezuela. While the programs of Hugo Chavez were being enacted, they improved the lives of the citizenry. Venezuelan society improved drastically. Health outcomes improved, literacy rates improved, poverty declined, homelessness declined. Like all of the things that matter went into decline. And this is largely, and during this time, like for God's sakes, Hugo Chavez at one point was kidnapped by the CIA, and it was a popular uprising that forced the CIA to return Hugo Chavez, and many of the people of Venezuela believe that Hugo Chavez was assassinated, including his predecessor, Nicolas Maduro. So this is what's happened in Venezuela. Now, why is America interested in Venezuela? They have the largest oil deposit in the world, right? And it's not this dirty oil that we've got up here in Canada. It's literally put a straw in the ground and suck the oil out oil. And the Americans want it. It's very, very simple. There's nothing else that needs to be said about it. And so the Biden administration is ramping up the war machine in order to put pressure on the Maduro administration, right? And so after the assassination of Hugo Chavez, right, the people of Venezuela elect Nicolas Maduro. Now imagine if this had happened in our country. I'm in Canada, okay? Well, and it's not hard to imagine this happening in America, right? Imagine in the last election, right? Donald Trump lost the election, okay? Imagine all of that happened, and then at the end, the entire world said, no, Donald Trump won that election, right? And not the entire world, half the world, right, declared the Venezuelan, declared the American election illegitimate, and said, no, the other guy won, right? Here in Canada, imagine if when Andrew Scheer lost the last election, right? Oh no, Andrew Scheer won that election. He's the guy. He's the leader of the country. This is exactly what they've done with Juan Guaido, and very serious, powerful people. Justin Trudeau and the Liberals have declared Juan Guaido the leader of Venezuela, right? This is our own leadership denying the official results of the Venezuelan democracy, pretending like their democracy is illegitimate when it is not, right? Pretending as though the Venezuelan opposition parties have been disallowed from participation when exactly the opposite is true. The Venezuelan government is an open democracy. Anybody can participate. And the reality is Juan Guaido can't win an election. And he can't win an election because the people of Venezuela know what will happen if he does, right? They know what a pro-capitalist, pro-American government is going to do. And so what our our media does, and this fascist propaganda that says, look at Venezuela as a way to discredit socialism, what they do is they completely omit and ignore the fact that the CIA and the American military have been involved in attempting to dismantle Venezuela and to loosen control of Venezuela from the Maduro government and the Chavistas, right? The Chavistas being the largest voting bloc who vote along socialist lines, right? And why do they vote along socialist lines? Because their lives have improved under socialism, right? And they're aware that the things that are no longer improving their lives, like the reason why their lives are no longer improving and why there's difficulty now, is because of capitalist intervention, and they're aware of it. They're well aware that their country is under economic assault. They're well aware that people have attempted to come into the country in order to assassinate Maduro. There's been several assassination attempts on Maduro by the United States government, right? And all of them have been foiled thus far. I should say most of them. Of course, most of them have been foiled. And if you don't believe me about any of this, well, then why is participation in the Venezuelan military, why are their ranks swelling, right? Their ranks are swelling by the millions, right? Their ranks aren't swelling by like this trickle of 10,000 here or 100,000 here that you see in the American military. Like, their ranks are swelling by the millions because they're well aware that an invasion by America is likely, right? America has a long, rigorous history of invading countries and stealing their resources, right? And to stand there and say, look at Venezuela as a way to discredit helping people is despicable and disgusting, and in my view, discredits you from any conversation to be taken seriously whatsoever. And there have been prominent people in our society who have said this, look at Venezuela riff. There has been prominent people in intellectual circles and in media circles who have said, look at Venezuela as a piece of fascist propaganda in order to discredit socialism, either through their own ignorance or complicity. Right? We shouldn't tolerate it at all. And we certainly shouldn't tolerate it from our own government. Like, the liberals pretend like they're these left-leaning, eco-friendly types. But the reality is that they're just hard-nosed corporatists. And their support of Juan Guaido over the democratically elected leader of the country, who is Nicolas Maduro, just reveals everything you need to know about them. And what's scary about this is that there is a principle of ruling, right? There's a ruling principle, which is if they're willing to do it to foreign nations, they're willing to do it to their own, right? Like, if they're willing to enslave the population of a foreign nation, they're willing to enslave their own population. What they do to their neighbors, they're willing to bring home. You're seeing that all over America right now, right? America has been destroying the world, including Venezuela. And I really need to touch base on this one thing, right? Just because they're not in a full-scale invasion doesn't mean they can't have profound effects on the Venezuelan economy, right? So just like flooding the market with fake currency, right? I believe their currency is called the Bolivar, right? Just flood the market with counterfeit currency, which will just destroy their economy and create a lot of confusion, right? It'll just inflate everything and create an awful lot of confusion and create an awful lot of difficulty for the people of Venezuela, right? Even if they get back together and they reorganize and they figure out what's going on, right? It's adding stress to the system, which is what the CIA has stated that they want to do. Make the economy scream. That's like a John Bolton quote, I believe. That may be a misquote, but that's certainly a quotation that has come out of the war machine. I don't exactly remember who exactly said it. My bad. But it just, at this stage in the game, it's like a fascist attempting to critique the leader of a country he's invading. That's what it is. And we as a people here in Canada arms dealers that we are and supporting an unelected leader of like, how are we not the despots in this situation? How are we not the ones that are looking at this situation and going, yeah, we're not the Nazis. Of course we are. We're supporting illegitimate power. We're supporting people who are sympathetic to us over people who want to have control over their own destiny, right? If Juan Guaido wants to be the leader of Venezuela, then he should win an election, right? It's a very simple principle. And the propaganda surrounding all of this is so strong. Like, Nicolas Maduro, his party is called the National Assembly, right? That has nothing to do with the formal power structure that exists in Venezuela. And but because they've said, "Oh, I've been elected as the president of the National Assembly," it sounds official. And I mean, it is official. He's the leader of the opposition, right? He's Aaron O'Toole to us, right? He's the Republicans now in the United States, right? They're the leaders of the opposition. And they gripe and they complain and they moan that the elections are illegitimate, even though they have full invitation to participate. And then they boycott the elections because they know that they'll lose. And how do we know this? Because in the last election, when people were boycotting, there were still some of them that ran. And guess what? They lost, right? So all Juan Guaido is a petulant child who wants to enslave the country of Venezuela, as has happened in the country's history, in living memory, no less, and steal their resources on behalf of the American empire. And for anyone to stand in front of me for any reason whatsoever and roll their eyes at socialism and say, look at Venezuela, that person is a fascist, and we should treat them that way. And our leadership, the liberal leadership, should do the right thing. Grow a spine, stand up, and actually say, Nicolas Maduro is the legitimate leader of Venezuela. He was elected by the people, by majority, in their constitutionally erected system. But they won't do that, right? Because the liberals they're completely spineless, right? They'll just go along with what America wants to do on the world stage. The last great thing that was done was Jean Chrétien not joining the Iraq invasion, which, was a massive war crime. And like, we've got to, like, the debating is done, right? Like, the debating is over. This is the reason why liberals are so dangerous, because they pretend that fascists are bad, but then when they get into power, they do what the fascists want, right? They act like fascists with their military, because while fascists are outright saying we need to destroy these people, liberals will say we need to use military force for good. That's their riff. The fascists are saying, no, we're doing it because we want their resources and we're going to go over there, steal them, and kill those guys. That's what the fascists will say. The liberals will say, well, we're going to do that too, but we're doing it for good. So don't tolerate this look at Venezuela riff anymore. And the people who have said it, if there's a person who you're listening to on your YouTube feed or your channel or any of that kind of stuff, who ever in their life has said without apologizing for it, look at Venezuela, and they've been serious, you need to get rid of that person. They're not credible. They can't be credible because they've omitted reality from their decision making and they've sided with the American empire. All right, this is the end of me. Like, share, subscribe, guys. Hit that little like button. Bing, free to do. Takes no time whatsoever. Make sure you subscribe. If you're here, subscribe, right? I do this every single day. Trying to get this channel up to 1,000 people. 1,000 people. And hey, if you want to help me out, really, make sure you go to my Patreon in the description below. Give me $1. $1, right? That's all it's going to take. All right, guys. I love you all. You're doing very well. Good luck out there. We're going to need it.